Sveiki prisijungę. Welcome everyone. We've been asking everyone to drop hellos, sakyt labas per mūsų chat, but it's really just such a pleasure to see all of you on the screen together. Mano vardas yra Skaidra Pudžiūnaitė. My name is Skaidra Pudžiūnaitė, and we just want to remind everyone that this session is fully bilingual. Tai jeigu norit kalbėt arba klausinėt lietuviškai, if you want to ask questions in English, whatever your language of choice is highly recommended and encouraged. Yra žmonės, kur nesupranta angliškai su mumis šiandien. There are some people who don't understand, there are some people who don't understand Lithuanian with us this afternoon. So we're just trying to make this as accessible to all. I'd also like to acknowledge that the land that I am joining from is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. It is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. I'd also like to acknowledge that Toronto, again, where I'm joining from, is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and we pay our respects. Today is also the Global Day of Solidarity with the people of Belarus. And as a Toronto Lithuanian board, we thought it was really important to make note of this. According to Svetlana Chustungskaya, the opposition leader of Belarus, Friends of Belarus can show solidarity by participating in events and rallies, releasing publications on the subject, displaying national Belarusian white, red, white colors, writing letters to Belarusian political prisoners, donating to solidarity that helped the repressed compatriots, contributing to issue-related online flash mobs, and making posts bearing the hashtag #StandWithBelarus. Pictured in this slide are also the events of this summer, where our Toronto Lithuanian community and Lithuanians across Canada linked arms in a physically distanced way with the people of Belarus and Canada to signal to Canada and the world that the people of Belarus continue to fight for justice, democracy, and freedom, a reality Lithuanians experienced not too long ago, and really dovetails nicely into the discussion and presentations we'll be diving into today. So mūsų darbotvarkė, our agenda for today. We'll do a very brief Toronto Lietuvių bendruomenė pristatymas. We'll hear from our Lithuanian ambassador to Canada, Darius Skutsavičius. Thank you so much, Darius and team, for joining us. We'll have a reflection and an introduction from Simona Rukienė, our Toronto Kanados Lietuvių bendruomenės pirmininkė. And then we'll get into hearing from Danguole Breen, our Kanados Lietuvių muziejaus archyvo directorė ir kuratorė of Democracy, One Defining Moment. And then we're going to do an open reflection session. And, we're really excited to carve out this space. But again, this is really new for us. So not totally sure how this will go, but please bear with us. We're super excited to have you with us. So čia yra mūsų valdyba. This is our board. The names listed, the people who are on our board have their names changed to Toronto Lietuvių bendruomenė. But if you could also say hello in the chat, if you're able to, that would be great, or give a wave. Really excited to have most of us on this call today. And really, what is it that Toronto Lietuvių bendruomenė does? We are seeking to amplify, connect, and lend support to initiatives led by community members across the Toronto Lithuanian community. And lately, we're really trying to be a one-stop shop for news on Lithuanian initiatives across Toronto. Mes irgi norim priminėt, kad vasario 16 is coming up, and there's two key ways that we're supporting, along with apylinkės across Canada. For the first time ever, vasario 16 will be celebrated online with chapters across Canada via Zoom on the actual day, on vasario 16 dieną. So please save the date. More information is being shared. We're going to send an email blast for Toronto apylinkė members, and we'll be promoting it on our social media. And also want to give a shout out to Kanados Lietuvių jaunimo sąjunga, who are leading the charge for also the first Canada-wide Lituaniška mokykla vasario 16 šventė, which will be happening on Saturday, February 20th. They're actually looking for volunteers. So if you know of people under the age of 35 looking for hours or looking to get involved, perhaps your kids, perhaps yourself, please spread the word. They're easily found on Facebook. And how can you stay in touch with Toronto Lietuvių bendruomenė? We have two places on Facebook. We have Toronto KLB page. We have a group with over 900 members. We have a newly established Instagram page with over 300 members. And always, please feel free to email us at torontoklb@gmail.com. We're also just looking to do better with our communication. So if you have any thoughts, we'll be sharing actually a survey following this event. So really, really welcome your thoughts, suggestions, or if you're interested to help us or get involved, please let us know. So with that, labai norėčiau pristatyti Darius Skutzevičius, our Lithuanian ambassador. Thank you so much, Dado. Really, I just want to say that Darius has been instrumentally getting involved with the Lithuanian community at the grassroots level and has helped us connect in these distributed times across Canada. So really, truly, thank you so much. And Dado, over to you.
Ačiū labai. Just don't understand now, Skaidra, in which language should I talk?
Lietuviškai ir angliškai, bet kokia kalba.
Okay. So, dear friends, it's a really great honor for me to join you this afternoon for this wonderful initiative by Toronto community. Andris, Latvian community, thank you for joining us. I see lots of familiar faces, Kazimieras, Paulius, Antanas and Snege is here, El Pace is here, and lots of others. And what is extremely exciting is to see young people also joining us for this event. People who even were not born during January 13th events. They are interested to know better, to understand better the history, and to understand better what was the role of Lithuanian community here in Canada during all these events. So really, when we are preparing now for February 16th event, and we were collecting some photos and some greetings from Canadian officials, and it's something amazing to see, pictures of 70s, 60s, how Lithuanian community was united during those times, and this was lasting and is still ongoing till now. But the role of Lithuanian community 30 years ago was really very important. With all those strikes, with all the petitions, with meeting government representatives, with participation in debates on the Hill, what parliamentarians were talking, what was the response by, and we see that Canadian politics is very much domestic oriented. By this, I want to say that if not community and its role here in Canada, nobody knows what Canadian reaction would be. So really, thank you very much for what you've done in this important and difficult path in Lithuania's independence case. And of course, second thanks goes to Danguole and museum archives. When I arrived last year, approximately at the same time, we started talking what we can do together, and Danguole did an amazing job with the team, collecting all those documents, all those pictures together, and really we are proud to be part of this process. You can count on us. We will be supporting you in all your upcoming projects. And this year is also important because it's 30 years of restored diplomatic relations between Baltic countries and Canada, which we will celebrate in August or maybe beginning of September. But yes, by saying this, really proud to be here with you today. Really proud to see community's role 30 years ago, and looking forward those difficult, strange times to reconnect again with you, as Skaidra already announced, on 16th of February, 7 p.m. Toronto, Ottawa time. For others it might be a bit earlier, but we will have a concert from Signatarų namai, especially for us, by young Lithuanian artists playing Lithuanian and Canadian songs with greetings from across Canada. So really looking forward to this event, and everybody is more than welcome to join on 16th of February. Thank you, Skaidra. Ačiū labai visiems už tai, kad esate ir labai malonu būti su jumis. Ačiū.
Labai ačiū, Dariau. Wonderful. Dabar noriu pristatyti mūsų Toronto lietuvių bendruomenės pirmininkę Simona Rukienė. Simona has actually been on the board for over 10 years now and has been our president for nearly 2. And what I loved about, when I was asking her, like, how do I present you? And she was saying, when people ask me, what is the background of Rukienė? Where does that come from? She always makes a point to show people and should not only show people where it is on the map, but invite people to ask questions about what it means to be Lithuanian. And that is a wonderful way to lead into Simona, who will share a few greetings. Over to you.
Labas vakaras visiems. Ačiū ambasadoriui ir ačiū Skaidrai už tokį gražų pristatymą. Toronto apylinkės valdybos vardu norėčiau visiems padėkoti, kad šiandieną susirinkote tokią šaltą popietę ir prisijungėte prie mūsų pirmosios Zoom paskaitos. Aš trumpai norėsiu pasveikinti visus ir angliškai. I would like to thank you and welcome everyone to this live Zoom session. And it's my honor to introduce you all to kick off a highlight of our discussion with Danguole Breen, who is a director of Canadian Lithuanian Archives Museum and a curator of Democracy, One Defining Moment. What's so special about this event is that we are all bringing together multiple perspectives, generations, and lived experiences under one Zoom session, which is happening today. Didelis ačiū Danguolei Breen ir Aleksandrui Valavičiui už jūsų nuostabų darbą, išlaikant mūsų lietuvių istoriją, paveldą ir organizuojant tokias įdomias parodas. 1991 m. sausio 13 d. aš gyvenau Lietuvoje, Kauno mieste. Dar buvau visai maža mergaitė, todėl mano prisiminimai tai yra blankus. Bet puikiai prisimenu, kokia ta diena buvo liūdna, bet pergalė didelė. Todėl šiandien norėčiau su visais pasidalinti savo geriausios draugės, mamos, buvusios pasaulio lietuvių bendruomenės ir Seimo komisijos pirmininkės, dabartinio Seimo narės Laimos Mogenienės gyvais atsiminimais apie sausio 13-osios įvykius. Aš tiesiog trumpai jums neskaitysiu gal visko, bet tokius tiesiog, kas mane tikrai asmeniškai labai palėtė ir kaip aš skaičiau pirmą kartą, tikrai net apsiverkiau. Sausio 13-oji – viena didžiausių mano gyvenimo dovanų. Ta naktį buvau prie Seimo, palikę mažytes dukras namie, su savo žmogumi ir tūkstančiais nepažįstamų, tačiau tokių artimų ir savų žmonių. Seimo lange jaunas kunigas Robertas Grigas, kalbantis žodžius nuo Dievo, kurie akimirksniu padrąsina minią ir kiekvieną minioje, užtraukia Marija, Marija. Suklumpame pažliugusime purviname sniege, ten, kur stovime. Visi, vyrai, moteris, jauni, seni, apsirengę kukliais palteliais ar brangiais kailiniais, tai nesvarbu. Giedame, kaip kam išeina, visi. Man ir daugeliu kitų giedoti trukdė nesuvaldoma rauda. Kažkas Seimo lange skaitė žuvusiųjų pavardes. Maldavau aplinkinius tylos. Mano brolis tąnakt buvo prie bokšto ir man mirtinai reikėjo išgirsti tą sąrašą. Nėra, vadinasi gyvas. Gyvas. Neapsakomas džiaugsmas begalinėme sielvarte. Ta naktį liudijau nepaprastą drąsą, pasiaukojimą, patriotizmą, pajutau tikrą artimojo meilę, nuoširdumą, altruizmą. Ta naktį supratau, kokia didi Lietuva ir jo žmonės. Nepaleidau šito tikėjimo, nešiojas jį viduj. Dėkoju likimui. Atsimenu, didžiuojos. Ačiū. Over to you, Skaidra.
Ačiū labai, Simona, tikrai labai širdys tema. So really, I'm just going to really get into it and just say that it is truly my honor to introduce you all to Danguole Breen. After a career in administration and the investment banking industry, Danguole Breen has had the opportunity to refocus her energy towards learning and preserving her heritage, our heritage. Lithuanians have been part of the continuous global immigration experience since the 1800s, and Danguole considers it a privilege to be able to preserve their contribution to Canada's multicultural society through the Lithuanian Museum Archives of Canada. What I think is even more remarkable is when we were doing our dry run, she simply said, if we don't, if we don't tell our stories, who will? And with that, Danguole, over to you. Once we find you and get the screen shared. I know you're here. Just gotta locate you. Ah, yes.
Labas visiems, jūs girdit?
Mes girdim.
Ačiū. Gerai, aš norėčiau pradėti su padėka taip pat KLB Toronto apylinkės valdybai, kad suruošėt šią popietę ir neleidžiat mums nuobodžiauti. Aš pirmiausia trumpai supažindinsiu visus dalyvius su pačiu Kanados lietuvių muziejum archyvu ir tada mes pakalbėsim apie pačią parodą Democracy One Defining Moment. Šie metai yra labai ypatingi už tai, kad Lietuvos centrinis archyvas švenčia savo 100-metį. Tai Lietuvos Respublikos Seimas paskelbė šiuos visus metus archyvų metus su šūkiu archyvai praeitis ateičiai. O dabar aš pereisiu į anglų kalbą ir pakalbėsiu apie mūsų muziejų archyvą. Our story begins in 1983 when the Kanados Lietuvių bendruomenės, or the Lithuanian Canadian Community National Executive, recognized the need to preserve our story and started talking about the possibility of establishing an archive. Around the same time, Lietuvos kankinių parapija Anapilio sodyboje offered the opportunity to build an addition to an existing central hall, which could house the archive as well as the museum. And this in fact happened so that our doors opened in the fall of 1989. That means that for over 30 years, thanks to previous directors, thanks to many volunteers, to the financial and community support, we have been functioning as a museum archive in all that time. In case you haven't found us, I wish I could say this is the entire building and structure is the museum archive, but we are in fact actually located on the second floor of the building that's on the right. Our vision is to preserve and promote the historical and cultural legacy of Lithuanians in Canada. And our mission is to build a comprehensive resource for those of Lithuanian heritage in Canada, for the Canadian community at large, and for all those with an interest in Lithuanian culture internationally. So what do? We collect information, donations, according to established parameters. We preserve the material that is donated to us. And one of the most important components of the preservation of the material for future generations is digitizing the material. And quite a large initiative is to digitize our audio-visual collection. And Alexandras is managing that process for us. We organize the material according to principles that are specific to archives, museums, and libraries. We promote or share our information by marketing through exhibitions, events, and also, of course, through our website. And the website has been designed and managed by Peg Perry, another one of our volunteers. We also do research. There are quite a number of people who, of course, are interested in their heritage, their genealogy. And we also get various subject requests from researchers around the world. Because we're small, we still have technical operations that we have to worry about. So we do have a bit of administration, finances, and facilities type things that we also manage. Our material is organized into 4 basic collections: the archive, which houses actual documents that have been collected on organizations or individuals. We have our museum collection, which would be individual artifacts, like things, as opposed to printed material. Our library, which has printed material, of course, it's books and journals. And we have an ever-growing digital collection of our material, our other documents and artifacts. And this would be what we look like on a good day when we're all organized. And this is just a sample of the type of material that we're dealing with in our digitizing project. You can see that it's actually, at this point in time already, impossible to read some of the material, like the floppy disks that we used to put into the computers. So when we are in a situation where we can no longer actually retrieve the information from some of these formats, we do use external professional services to digitize material. For example, one specific example would be 16mm films. So as Skaidra mentioned, I think the way that I was able to answer a question to myself is, why is it important for us to collect all of this information, to organize it, to make it accessible to people? It relates to a story where I went to a gallery at the St. Lawrence Market here in Toronto, and the exhibition that they were showing was the history of immigration in Toronto. And I thought, fantastic, I really want to see how they show the Lithuanian immigration story, which is part of Toronto's history. So I went off to this exhibition, I'm looking at it, it's all chronologically arranged. I'm looking at it, I'm finally reaching the point when we would have had the largest influx of immigrants from Europe, which would be the post-World War II time period. And of course, you're reading about all of the various ethnic groups that were immigrating at the time. So they've got Hungarians, Czechoslovakians, you name it. And I did not see anything about Lithuanians. And the way they described it was, and other groups. So I'm going, oh, I guess we fit into those other groups. But they didn't even put in an asterisk to identify the other groups. So in effect, we were not even represented, not even as a member of the Baltic community. So that really struck me, and I thought to myself, if we don't tell our stories, no one else will. And in essence, that is what we do. We tell stories. Every single object, everything that comes into our museum that we keep for posterity has a story behind it, whether it's a piece of paper or a document. In this case, it is the communique that Canada establishes diplomatic relations with Lithuania in August 1991. There's a massive story behind that document. There are personal stories behind a document or artifact like this. This is a personal story of a family immigrating iš Lietuvos, and it's told through the eyes of a child. We have our famous bar of soap from the 1930s, Žuvelė, Ponia Tarvydienė. I think you can remember this from our exhibition. It tells an economic story, because Lithuania was newly independent in 1918, and the push was on to buy Lithuanian manufactured products. At the bottom left, we have a story of an organization. In this case, it represents Kanados Lietuvių Jaunimo Sąjunga, which is told through photographs and other documents. And last but not least, we have a frying pan. And this is an artifact, actually one of the most recent artifacts that we have acquired. And it is a frying pan that was owned by someone, a resident of Vilnius Manor here in Toronto. And last spring, he would take that frying pan outside every night at 7:30, and he had a little hammer and he would bang this frying pan along with thousands of other people in Toronto who were making noise and clapping hands in appreciation for the frontline COVID-19 workers. The individual artifacts tell stories, and then we also tell stories in an exhibition format. This is an example of our in-house exhibition, or an in-house exhibition for, it was called Stiklas, and it was Daina Putarienės artistic photography exhibition. We also commemorated Lietuvos nepriklausomybės šventę, šimtmetį, which was a few years ago. And this is an example of a part of this exhibition where we did a historical timeline for Lietuva from 1795 to 1940. We also produced traveling exhibitions, and this is an example of a traveling exhibition. We are more than happy to throw these panels into the car and wherever our car can reach, in this case, Jada Švento Kazimiero Parapija in Montreal. So we were able to bring that out to Montreal. We exhibit locally as well in Hamilton. But in addition to that, once you have a traveling exhibition telling a story, it can also reach Lietuva, which we in fact did a few years ago at an event that was put on by Pasaulio Lietuvių Bendruomenė. And some very distinguished guests were able to hear or see our exhibition. We're always trying to innovate in our exhibitions. This is, as you can see, a very small exhibition. That is it, one display case, which was put up at the Ontario Legislative Assembly. And we thought, okay, the topic was Lithuanian folk instruments. Well, you can take a look at these folk instruments, but wouldn't it be interesting to hear them? So in this case, I don't know if you can see it, but in the sort of the bottom right-hand corner, there is a QR code. So this was our first attempt at connecting an exhibition, a physical exhibition, to a virtual exhibition, which was then posted on our website that included much more information about the instruments, as well as the ability to hear what they sound like. This is our famous drive-through Zeppelinai / drive-through exhibition event that we had last year in May. Lietuvos kankinių parapija was planning to do their traditional kapų lankymo meal as a drive-through opportunity, and we added to that by including a drive-through exhibition that people could look at as they waited to pick up their Zeppelinai. And this particular series of photographs we posted on Facebook. And we have set a record, certainly for us, in terms of the number of people that were reached through Facebook. And the number of people was 11,500 people. I don't know if we'll ever meet that target again. Unfortunately, COVID continues, and so we continue with our drive-through exhibitions and QR codes. Leading people to virtual exhibitions on our website. Okay. So at this point, I'm just going to try to switch us over to the actual exhibition, Democracy, One Defining Moment. So if you'll just bear with me for one moment. Oh, it worked. Okay. This is our website, and the tab that we're on is the digital gallery. I'm assuming most of you have had the opportunity to actually take a look at this exhibition, but that's where it's located. And the team, I'll start off by talking about the team that actually put this virtual exhibition together. There was myself as the curator, Alexandros as the audio-visual editor, Peg did the web and marketing design, and Gabia Petrauskine did the transcription, which is at the end of the exhibition. So now this is where I get to reveal all of the secrets in curating our exhibition. Of course, you start with a theme. In this case, it was the commemoration of the 30th anniversary of the events in Lithuania. And in choosing a theme, I always try to find an angle, something different, something that hasn't been looked at before. And in this particular case, I thought that there were two very important questions that needed an answer. And the first question was, here we are in Canada, and these amazingly significant historical events are happening in Lithuania. So how can we relate to that? That's what I wanted to investigate. And the second one was, why is a person willing to put their life in danger for the sake of a cause? I really was hoping to try to get an answer to that question. In fact, that question was put to someone. My sister was able to actually, through a phone call, was able to contact someone who was at SEMAS during this time period and pose that question. And the answer that this person gave was that once you make the decision to stay and possibly die, the rest simply falls into place. You don't even think about it anymore. You just do what you have to do. So the thought that struck me was that this must be such a defining moment in a person's life that comes very rarely, but it's got to be very defining. I looked up the definition of defining moment. And the definition is a point at which the essential nature of a person or group is revealed. And I thought, that's it. That's the title. This is what we're talking about here. It's democracy, one defining moment. So what we did next was we set the historical context, because I think, you know, after 30 years, we need a reminder of what the facts are around the history that led to the situation in Lithuania. So that's what we have represented here. And then we wanted to really commemorate the 14 people that lost their lives that day. So this is just a very, very simple, consider it a very small memorial to the 14 people who were the ones that faced their defining moment in life. And in fact, it became their final moment in life. We then need to remind everyone again about the actual events that were happening around that day. So we started with January the 10th, the lead up basically, and then specifically what happened on the early morning of January the 13th. It's always very, very important not to present information only textually, but also visually. So Alexandros was able to take a look throughout our collection, and we also look at external resources as well. And we were able to reproduce the two very compelling, almost documentary type videos that were produced by Užsienio Reikalų Ministerija, Vilniuje. And the other piece that Alexandros edited was from a VHS tape that we actually have of the translation from Kaunas, which took over when all translation was lost with Vilnius. The biggest concern that Kaunas had at that time was, is our story getting out to the world? And what we did was we edited the tape to just show the Canadian connection, which was, there was confirmation that the broadcast had reached Canada and of course the rest of the world. So that's what the third video represents. The next part of the exhibition deals with the question of how can we relate in Canada to these events that were happening halfway around the world? How did we hear the call from Lithuania? And I think KLB had issued those SOS buttons, the Save Our Souls buttons. And I thought that was a very, very appropriate visual representation of the Canadian community hearing the call for help and responding. And of course, living in Canada, and since we were talking about democracy, the tools that we have at our disposal were used extensively. And that would be, of course, the demonstrations, the petitions, the lobbying of the parliamentarians and local politicians, using our media communications, and also putting together work groups that needed to focus on various initiatives such as fundraising and humanitarian aid, etc. The body that really took this on very, very strongly was the Lithuanian Canadian community at the national level in terms of directing all of the response through their chapters. And so we wanted to represent some of the material that shows the various initiatives. And I'm not going to go through all of these documents, but that's what this representation is. And I also wanted, at the end here, I wanted specifically to show that this was not just, you know, all of a sudden we woke up and realized that something had to be done. The process had started initially many years before, but really kicked into high gear, I would say, around 1989. And so on. So I did the whole year review of the activities of the National Executive in the various areas to show that it was a much broader response. And of course, as part of the KLB, the various chapters responded as well. And again, I wanted to highlight that even some of the smallest branches, Oakville, for example, or Rodney, Ontario, I'm not sure if it's there, even though they didn't have many resources at their disposal, the minimum that everyone did was at least fundraise. And then, of course, the larger communities were able to do a lot more. The most critical component, I think, of this entire time period for us in Canada would have been communication. And the LCC recognized that and established the Crisis Center here in Toronto as a communication hub. And I hope there are people participating today who were there and can shed some more light on this. But I believe that at that time, the way that people were communicating was through faxes. We didn't have our little iPhones in our pockets available to us. So it was faxes coming through from Lithuania, from the New York Information Center, from wherever, all around the world. And the volunteers at the Crisis Center, which was headed up by Daria Dixnita Powell, would have received the information, would have digested the information, would have assessed it, would have redirected it to the appropriate people who were involved in various projects. So once again here, I'm just giving an example of the types of communication that would have been flowing through. And other initiatives. And also what I included was the words of a volunteer, Laima Sheshkoviana, who was there actually January 12th into January 13th. And her from a personal perspective, what it was like working at the Crisis Center. This represents really how much influence I think the Baltic community was able to exert on the federal level politicians specifically. Of course, there was additional support from other levels of government as well, municipal level. But I wanted to show the actual, how does this process, what's the end result of this process? And it is represented in the House of Commons debates and also the Senate debate, where the foreign minister is questioned about the Canada's response to the events. And the last part that we focused on was the press and how everything was presented, how the events were presented in the press. The newspaper headlines, if you go through them all, will tell you the entire story. And there was extensive press coverage, I would say, right from 1990 in the Canadian press. So that's represented there. And of course, the television coverage was extensive, but unfortunately, due to copyright restrictions and finances, we were not able to do a series, an edited series of some of the wonderful interviews that took place locally as well as nationally. So all that we were able to show was a list of some of the broadcasts that were made, and then 2 sample interviews with corresponding transcriptions. This one being with Algis Patsavičius, the president of the Canadian Lithuanian community at that time, who was interviewed by the CBC. The exhibition was launched on January the 7th. And in checking our website statistics for the visitors to the exhibition, we've had close to 900 people visiting. I don't think they would have all fit if we were doing this in-house. And roughly half are from Canada, and approximately a quarter are from Lithuania, and a quarter are from the United States. And then I'm going to do it. I'm going to say there's an other category as well. Okay, I'm just going to change this. Okay. All right, and just to finish off, I'm just going to plug what we're working on next, and that is a very comprehensive exhibition that will look at the Lithuanian Canadian contribution to the entire time period that's considered Lietuvos atgimimo laikotarpis. So that would be 1988 to 2004. And we are also working on an exhibition that's called Foreign Footsteps in the War of 1812, because that is the very first opportunity that we have to take a look at a recorded document that tells us that there were Lithuanians that stepped on the soil, on Canadian soil in 1812. So that's what we're working on next. And here's the team, the core team that is working at, that has been there, I guess, since about 2014 right now. There's myself, Alexandra Svalavičius, Peg Perry, and we should probably add a whole bunch of other pictures of the volunteers that dedicate their time and skills to our efforts. Labai ačiū už dėmesį.
Ačiū labai, Danguole. Tikrai, yeah, let's just, let's take a moment to virtually applause. Tikrai. That was Spectacular. And I mean, the comments are overwhelmingly positive. Tikrai, ačiū labai. And you know, I think in the interest of time, we do want to definitely get into some open reflection, but I think Danguole, maybe as one question that I think is important to ask, since we do have such a captive audience of enthused Lithuanians, how can we help? You know, what is your call to action? What are the things that we can take away and start doing next week or in the months to come?
Well, I appreciate the question. I think there's just a few things that we really would appreciate, and that would be just participation in some of the initiatives that we have. Because if we have more participation, that really encourages us to bring them forward in new venues. So for example, on our website, on our first page, we have an initiative called First Photo in Canada, where we're asking people, nobody's going to be checking to make sure this is absolutely the first photograph of your family stepping, you know, on Canadian soil, but as close to that time period as possible. What a way to capture our story. If we had tons of participation, just by submitting a photograph, I can just imagine what exhibitions we could put together and share them in a very broad venue. So it's really encouraging people to check our website, and if we do have any sort of initiative or call out to people, please participate. So that would be tremendous. The other thing that really helps us is marketing, and sometimes it's word of mouth marketing, and sometimes it's through social media marketing. Just, hey, did you see this, and so on. That really helps. And if there are any, you know, we're limited in our skill set. So if there are people that have social media skills or marketing skills or so on, and are willing to help us out, we really appreciate that. And lastly, just send us your ideas. We love ideas.